Hello and welcome once again to The Blueprints. This is Canada's Conservative Podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Schmale, Member of Parliament for Haliburton for the Lakes Brock, with another new episode, new content every single Tuesday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We do appreciate you joining us. We are not taking a break because that Liberal agenda is always moving forward. So we ask that you help us push back against that agenda. Please like, comment, subscribe, share this program. Together, we can do that, ensure that Erin O'Toole is the next Prime Minister of Canada. And of course, if you can't watch the whole program now, you can download it later on platforms like CastBox, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, you name it, it is out there. So today's topic is all about the economy, all about economic recovery. We're seeing a lot of provinces across the country starting to reopen if they haven't already. The economy is trying to come back. The Liberals, of course, have damaged certain sectors of our economy, specifically oil, natural gas. We see problems with the mining sector because of the policies this government is bringing in and has brought in and continue to bring in. So with that, we bring in a newcomer to the show, Gerald Soroka, the Member of Parliament for Yellowhead in the beautiful province of Alberta. He is out meeting constituents, but he has taken time to check in with us in his car. We do appreciate you coming on.
Well, thank you, Jamie, for that. And sorry for my background, but it's a busy time of the year for us, and there's always people to meet because Alberta is now officially all open. So we do not have any more restrictions. So it's quite an interesting time for us compared to the other places in the country.
Now, what is interesting about that is as the provinces like Alberta, Saskatchewan, and others start to reopen, the federal government has decided to continue their spending. Right? They are continuing to put all these programs, all this spending on the credit card for future generations to deal with. But they couch all their spending that has nothing to do with COVID in COVID relief. Now, how does that go over with the people you're speaking with, knowing that every dollar that is spent over and above what the government collects is going on the credit card, is going on the national debt?
Well, it's a combination of a few things. Like I hear from people asking about what is our national debt at and how are we ever going to pay this back? And they're also worried not only for their children, but even their grandchildren already of how are they going to be able to afford and pay this all back? And it's sort of a double fold because they also know that our current government doesn't support any natural resource extraction here in Canada. And, it's hitting oil and gas as well as, like you said, mining is another area. And people are saying, how can we pay this back if we don't have good, stable jobs as well?
And I think it's those anchors that are so important to the economy. Traditionally, like we have mentioned, oil and gas, the mining sector, which then creates spin-off jobs, manufacturing jobs, and the technology and innovation. When that is kind of brought to its knees, the brains that go with it, the people that are coming up with the next great thing, they start to look at other countries, other jurisdictions to do business, and because Canada isn't showing leadership in this area.
Well, that's a very big. Many companies have pulled out billions of dollars in investment. Just the LNG plant now in Quebec was just canceled by the provincial and federal governments. So, there's another area that is hurting Western Canada. And my issue is they don't seem to realize that if they talk about global crisis, it is around the world. If they're burning other types of fuels besides natural gas that are better for the environment, which we could be supplying to many other countries, that would be benefiting our environment. And that's one of the things that I think they're missing out on is the opportunities that we have from our natural resource sector in Canada that really this government has failed to take action upon. Instead, they start looking at sort of dream ideas such as, we're going to build a green economy through green technology. Now that sounds nice, but you ask them, what is your green technology? Is it going to be more wind, more solar, more hydro, or are you going to go with nuclear? Where's the plan? And they give you a starry-eyed look as to, I don't know, it's just green technology. That's all I know. And that's the problem is they don't have a well laid out plan on how we're going to change our economy to this green technology or green economy.
And I think that's where the Conservative plan really focuses in on. It talks about incentivizing individuals, companies to not only create something, come up with an idea, but also manufacture it right here in Canada. So we aren't just having the ideas here and going somewhere else. We're actually trying to get it all here so that we are able then to export and create that revenue source here in our communities, creating those spin-off jobs with that innovation that takes place domestically.
Yes, definitely, because that's something that I think people have really realized from COVID here is how much we rely on other countries to supply our basic needs. And I don't care if it was face masks, rubber gloves, whatever the case may be, people started realizing we aren't producing much here in Canada. And that's a factor that we really got to start looking at is our manufacturing side of things. But going back to our economy and that, there's a prime example of how many things that we can start deriving additionally from our oil and gas sector, such as blue hydrogen. I mean, everyone wants to go to electric vehicles. That sounds great and it's fine to do that. The problem is our power grid isn't anywhere near the quality we need to have everyone plugging in vehicles. About 2 weeks ago, when we were hitting that 30 some degree weather here in Alberta, the city of Edmonton, everyone put their air conditioning units on, and they actually had a brownout in quarter of the city just from 110 volt air conditioning systems. Now, if everyone started plugging in their 240 volt electric car, how is that going to be charging when the power grid collapses? Because we simply do not have enough electrical generation or the high efficiency lines that we need to in every city across Canada.
One of the things we talk about often on this show is the government picking winners and losers. And as you just mentioned as a prime example, when you're talking about electric cars, where you're talking about a certain technology, whether it be wind or solar, when the government picks winners and losers, it slows down innovation because people that are dealing in the marketplace know that the government is going to send certain dollars to a certain area, say wind or solar, for example. But there could be a technology that isn't being talked about that's being developed on the side that has to not only go against that wave of government dollars into their competitors, but also try to raise that capital, come up with something that might be better. But that's why it's so much better. It's always a better plan when you ensure that there is rapid innovation. So you level the playing field, keep taxes and rules and regulations in a reasonable level so that we are able to compete and create here in Canada.
Oh, definitely. Because once you start providing incentives or like you say, the winner and loser scenario, you don't get that drive for efficiencies. You basically get that compliance that, well, here's how we've done things. Yeah, we'll just keep doing the same kind of, and I don't care if it's the wind generation or the same type of solar panel, there isn't that incentive there to go and say, how can we become better efficient at it? Because we need to increase our profits or even be profitable, because a lot of our green technology is not profitable unless it is subsidized in some degree. And that's one of the biggest problems when you get the Liberal government right now trying to build the economy. You can't build an economy when you keep subsidizing everything. So basically what it means is you take a large amount of money to subsidize a plan, and then you take a small amount of money, the economy, if you continually keep putting more and more money into it. That's not building an economy. That's just draining our pocketbooks. And that's why our deficit keeps increasing year after year. And that's why we need to get rid of this type of subsidies all the time. We need to get back to more efficiency and have the public or the generation, the manufacturing sector, get more to how can they increase profits and efficiencies with what they're producing as opposed to just subsidizing.
And don't forget, too, when the government keeps throwing money at a certain industry, a certain sector, it doesn't matter what it is, you're also taking away competition. You're also taking away choice. I look at what the Liberals are talking about in their childcare announcements that they seem to be making a lot of hay about. And not only is the cost for this program all deficit finance, meaning the children that are probably going into daycare or in need of daycare that are going to be potentially getting a space, they probably are going to be tough in to get one because there's never enough money to go around. But they're the ones who are going to pay for that. And at some point, they're going to probably need childcare for their children. But yet, because of the decisions this government's making, it's all going on the credit card now, while at the same time, has the very real potential to basically take away those neighborhood childcare spaces that you would have at usually run by females, by women with small businesses trying to make a go of it. You're taking away that competition. You're taking away that choice for the one government program. And if it doesn't work, you're in big trouble because they've already eviscerated the competition.
Yeah, that's quite a conundrum that they put themselves into, because you're right. They want to do a cookie cutter approach, how everyone's going to do the same type of childcare. But there's many families, I know in my riding, where they have a friend or a family member, even a grandparent that is able to take care of their children. And yet underneath this Liberal plan, that's not an option. We want it to be all institutionalized, basically just like a school system, which is fine if that's the way you want to go. But if you've got other options or want to go in a different direction, now you're not going to be subsidized or have that ability to have affordable childcare. And that's one of the biggest problems with the plan that the government is putting out, is that it's that cookie cutter approach. And you remember how Justin always talks about, even with COVID, yes, we're going to deal with the masses first, and then we will deal with the people that are falling through the cracks. Well, trust me, they always have people falling through the cracks in every program, and they never come back and adjust it or change it to make sure that these people are getting the help that they need. There's so many Canadians have come to me and says, we've fallen through the cracks. When is Justin and this government going to actually do something to help me? And you don't know how discouraging it is when you're on a phone call and saying, this program doesn't work, or yes, we got a few dollars from that program, but we're financially ruined and now we're being foreclosed on. What are our options underneath, some of the COVID programs? And through no fault of their own, they've gone bankrupt, and yet they didn't get any assistance whatsoever that this government was promising right from the start.
Well, it would have been handy if Parliament was sitting basically full time, but you remember for the longest time we had a Parliament that wasn't Parliament. It was more Committee of the Whole, but it was often called fake Parliament. It really wasn't working. Where when these problems came up in our communities, we would have had the opportunity to bring them forward to the ministers or in question period or other forums, and really the Liberals, the help from the NDP and the Bloc, really shut down the democratic institution that is supposed to be guiding and keeping the government to account.
Well, actually, this COVID really helped out the government whatsoever, because, you take a look. As a new MP getting elected in October of 2019, we didn't sit until the start of December. Now you start thinking about that. Did Justin ever really want to have Parliament? So now, once it came around to COVID, they were more than willing to shut the doors down. And, like you said, we basically, since March 13th was the last day we sat in the House. Not that I remember it that well, but yes, definitely. From that point on, we really haven't had the true Parliament. Even in September, when they reissued Parliament going back again, it wasn't the same feel. You know yourself, we tried to have as many Conservatives as we were allowed in the House. Even the Bloc and the NDP sent people into the House, but the Liberals, if there was 2 or 3 people in the House, and yes, I know they say they're on Zoom and they're still in the House, but it's not the same. I know that if there's something comment was said, people would be laughing and it wasn't being heard. People would wonder what was said, what was done. You're not the same feel. So if you're not in the House drooling with real Parliament, then you're not feeling it. That's just the new MP that really only had about 3 weeks of true MP experience from the time he's got elected in the last almost 2 years already.
Yeah, for the class of 2019, I think it has been a real eye opener on how Parliament works and the role of a member of Parliament. You're right; you only got started a little bit, and then you were kind of shut down. And hopefully you'll be back very soon. Where the House is set to resume in September. Who knows if there will be an election or not? There's only a few people that do know that, and Justin Trudeau is one of them. So as the economy reopens, I've read a lot of articles. I've heard a lot of people around my community talking about going back to the office setting, probably in September. And as that happens, we're going to see a kind of a kickstart, I think, in the economy. People are going to be back, as most can, as safely as they can, or as they feel needed or required, back to normal. And in the issue that continues to really bother me is the rate in which the government of Canada, or the Bank of Canada, is printing money to fund all these pet projects for the Liberals, because we've seen some massive inflation numbers in the United States. Some are already saying it could be the same here in Canada when those numbers are released very, very soon in the coming weeks. But we've already seen it. If you go to the grocery store now, the price of groceries is skyrocketed. Gasoline, you name it, it's all rising. It's all showing that your dollar is not a dollar anymore. And you can't do this forever, or you run the risk of debauching the economy or the currency, probably a combination of both.
Well, there's so many things I want to talk to you about there. And Jamie, is that you said that we're going to get back to normal here in September. One area in my riding is tourism that, isn't anywhere close back to normal. You have to understand, I've got Jasper National Park in my riding. So, the town of Jasper has been suffering throughout this. And plus, there's so many other communities that rely on tourism. I don't care if it's Hinton, Edson, Drayton Valley, Rocky Mountain House. There's many operators that have different types of businesses, as well as hotels, even restaurants. There's a big issue with people coming or not coming, I guess, is the bigger concern, and not staying as much. Or if they do stay, they don't stay as long. And the financing side of that and the tourism sector has just been devastating. So that's why I wanted to point to you that it's really not back to normal for a lot of people yet. And it's going to take even a few more, not even months, but years to get back to, I think, a stable base for some of these tourist operators. So basically, it's been another summer that, thank goodness, we got opened up here. But I don't think we still had anywhere as close to the same amount of volume of economy that we used to have in this area. But yeah, there was so much there you wanted to talk about. I can't even remember everything that I had to say, but it's just devastating, like you said, about, the deficit that we've taken on. We look at $33,000 per person now has to pay of what we're sitting at. That's a brand new vehicle for everybody in your family. And yet no one looks at it in that ways. And I think the big number is, when you're talking 1.2 trillion in deficit, people's eyes just glaze over because they can't even fathom that much money. So it's no surprise. And that's why it's good when you break it down to like $33,000 per person. That's just a staggering amount.
And while you were one and I was another, and so were our colleagues, a lot of these spending programs were passed in the House unanimously. But it's the other stuff that the Liberals have all couched and thrown in the COVID pile, right? The infrastructure, the childcare, and the list goes on of projects that have nothing to do with COVID, but they are spending in this COVID pocket of money. That it's almost an invitation for them to use COVID as an excuse to really spend to their heart's desire. And of course, the NDP and the Bloc encourage that and continue to push those dollars out the door. But they aren't looking at the fact that somebody will have to pay at some point. And when interest payments rise, the interest rate rise, the amount we pay to service our debt goes up. We will have less for services for Canadians. I think that's an important point that has to be hammered in.
Well, it's a very important part. But the other thing is that they've been promising a lot of this money, but yet are the projects even being delivered upon? They talk so much about how we're going to build more in infrastructure through the Canada Infrastructure Bank, but yet when you start looking at how many projects are being completed, they're not as much as they're bragging them up to be. That's the issue, is a lot of their red tape that's in the way, as well as when they start announcing projects, a lot of times they start saying, don't worry. Even childcare in Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, sorry, for the provincial election, it says, don't worry, there's going to be childcare available. Unfortunately, it's not going to be fully through till 2026. Well, that sounds very encouraging, but that's still many years away from families that will need whatever type of childcare that they're going to introduce. So that's the other factor that they're talking about, is they promise all these things, but are they actually delivering? And the scary part is they're not only delivering, but the money just keeps going out and our deficit keeps increasing. So how are we going to build back anything, as they call them, build back better, with no economy, huge debt loads, and promises that aren't being fulfilled?
That's why we have to make sure that Erin O'Toole is the next Prime Minister of Canada. The Conservatives are the governing party. We are pretty much out of time, but I always give the guests the last word. So, Gerald, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Jamie, for that. And yeah, it's a horrible situation we're in right now with our deficit the way it is. The economy is in shambles. Every area that we know of is not anywhere close back to up maximum production. Actually, most things are even decreasing, yet the cost of everything continually goes up. You take a look at gas is up 43%, furniture's up 10%, cars are up 5%. Like everything keeps increasing, but yet not the people's salaries or their job prospects either. You don't know how many people have told me, my child can't find a job here in Alberta. They're either having to go to other provinces or even other countries right now. I know myself, my two nephews that born and raised in Canada here in Alberta, both right now are in Michigan. One is actually going to be working in New York. That's sort of sad that we can't even create an economy for this younger generation to stay here in Canada.
And we also talked about quite a bit the younger workforce in Alberta, and that is hurting a lot of families for sure. We will have you back on, Gerald. We have lots more to talk about, but unfortunately we are out of time, and it looks like you need to get back to your constituents. And I wish you luck. You have a massive riding. I forget how many square kilometers it is.
Well, I always put it this way. The province of Nova Scotia has about 56,000 square kilometers. I'm around 74,000 square kilometers. So I'm a little larger than the province of Nova Scotia. So it's a little more challenging. And thank you very much for letting me do this. And I want to wish everyone a great and a happy summer for how much longer we have.
Gerald Soroka, the Member of Parliament for Yellowhead. We appreciate him coming on and talking about the state of the economy and what Conservatives will do to change this roadmap that the Liberals are using to guide the country, because we do think there is a better way to do things. There is a better way. Erin O'Toole's the Prime Minister, is the person that will lead that charge. Please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share this program. Help us push back against the ever-moving Liberal agenda, because we will have new content for you every single Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We do appreciate you showing up, and we do appreciate if you download this program potentially later on to listen to it. Platforms like CastBox, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, you name it, it is out there. And remember, low taxes, less governments, more freedom. That is the blueprint.